Hello, you're watching 6 News on the Hour. I'm Leonardo, Puglisi. The top stories we're following right now, absolutely abhorrent. Victorian MP Catherine Cumming condemned across the political aisle after saying she wants Dan Andrews to turn into red mist, in comments widely seen as a threat towards the Premier just a week out from polls closing. Fallout continues after a leaked video of preference whisperer Glenn Druery shows him saying he controls a number of upper house minor parties. One of the candidates he helped get elected in 2018, Rod Barton from Transport Matters, will join 6 News exclusively in just a moment. And the Freedom Party and a Liberal candidate call for the election to be postponed over group voting tickets, despite them not affecting who gets into government, as the battle for Dan Andrews' seat of Mulgrave heats up. Good evening. A sitting Victorian MLC has said she wants Daniel Andrews to turn into red mist, in comments widely seen as a threat towards the Premier. The comments were made by angry Victorians Party MP Catherine Cumming, who is a member for the Western Metro region, at a rally in Melbourne today. She said, quote, "I joined the angry Victorians Party for one reason, to make Daniel Andrews turn into red mist." She goes on to say, quote, "In the army, we would call it pink mist, but I want him into red mist. Give anyone in the army a job to blow someone up, and they will." Now, pink mist is the term used when referring to the blood that comes out of a sniper's target when they are hit. Victorian Liberal leader Matthew Guy said in a statement, "I condemn in the strongest possible remarks the comments made by Dr. Catherine Cumming today. Statements and language like this have no place in our state or nation. Dr. Cumming should withdraw these remarks immediately and apologise unreservedly." Greens leader Samantha Ratnam saying the remarks were, quote, "absolutely abhorrent and have no place in Parliament, let alone in our society." And in the last few hours, Victoria Police confirming they will investigate following, quote, "a report of insightful behaviour during a speech at a rally outside Flinders Street Station." Well, Victorian opposition leader Matthew Guy says Renee Heath will not sit in the Liberal Party room after the election, following reports she's a member of a, quote, ultra-conservative church that aims to infiltrate coalition politics. The Age reported she's a member of City Builders Church. Now, Heath is number one on the Liberals' Eastern Vic region ticket, essentially guaranteeing she will win. She will still appear as a Liberal candidate on the ballot paper, as it is too late to change. Meanwhile, fallout continues after a leaked video showed preference whisperer Glenn Druery saying he controls a number of upper house minor parties. One candidate he helped get elected in 2018, Rod Barton from Transport Matters, was in with just 0.62% of the primary vote and is working with Druery again. 6 News spoke to Barton before that Druery video was leaked earlier this week to discuss group voting tickets and the issues facing Victorians right now. Rod Barton, welcome to 6 News.
Thank you, Leonardo.
Great to have you here. So, look, you were elected back in 2018, one of many minor party MPs who were elected at that election. It's been a really interesting 4 years of the Victorian Parliament, without even mentioning COVID-19 here. What have you been able to do in that time for your constituents in the Eastern Metro region?
Well, I'm pretty proud of the work we have been able to achieve. It's we've done a lot of work around not only from an industry I've come back from my stakeholders in the commercial passenger vehicle sector, but certainly things around that we're big on the homelessness. We know we've got a massive problem out here in the Eastern Metropolitan region. We know that there's only for every 10 people who seek help for emergency housing every night, we can only help 3, right? So there's 7 people who end up sleeping in their cars or sleeping rough or couch surfing or things like that. So we're very proud. Well, I'm very proud that we got the homelessness inquiry up, and that has a big impact out in these leafy suburbs. But many people don't believe where homelessness is such a big issue.
And do you think your constituents, because obviously we are now, Eastern Metro is now North Eastern Metro, but still same relative area, do you think they're going to be aware of those, of what you've been able to do there, like with the homeless inquiry? Because, you know, they're the ones who'll decide your vote, even if it's popular to be looking at the issue across the state. It's those few people in the Eastern Metro region, North Eastern Metro, whatever we want to call it, that will be deciding whether you're re-elected or not.
No, you're absolutely right. But that's one of the jobs that we need to get this information out. The things that we've campaigned on has been a lot of social issues, kids with parents in custody, homelessness. These aren't trendy subjects, but they cost the state billions of dollars every year. and it's a really important part of our social fabric. So no, we've got a big. We're out there advertising. We're on billboards, and we're out talking to people. We're doing a lot of functions at the moment. So yeah, we're out selling the message. That's for sure.
Back when you were elected in 2018, you obviously had, or your party had, 0.62% of the vote, which is not that much, if we're honest here. You effectively leapfrogged 9 other parties to get in through the GVT system. I want to ask, first of all, do you support keeping that system, given it undoubtedly helped you in 2018?
Leo, I spend my life supporting minority groups, people whose voices aren't heard. So I like the group voting ticket because it gives people an opportunity to have their voices heard. At the last election, I think there was something, don't take this absolutely gospel, about 23% of the population didn't vote for a major party. I expect it to be much larger coming to this. So what we're giving is that 25%, a quarter of the voting population, a voice in the parliament. So yes, I do think it's an important part, and the diversity is makes it exciting in the upper house.
I mean, look, I'd have to agree on that point. It has been a very diverse upper house, and we're aiming to speak to all the minor parties, both those who have had representation in the last 4 years and haven't. But of course, there were 9 other parties, bar Labor and Liberal, that had votes ahead of yours on at least a single basis, without including preferences there. I think Greens in Eastern Metro 2018 had about 9%. You've got less than 0.7%. Is it fair that you were able to get in and they were able to, and they missed out? They lost, I think, 4 of their MLCs total statewide.
Yeah, we didn't invent the system. The system is what we inherited, and we just had to work within the system which is there. We're pretty proud that we formed a political party only 7 months out from the last election with a group of people where English wasn't their first language, and we played their game, and we managed to get a seat. And I think we've been really effective, and really we can be really proud of what we've achieved.
Now, a big issue that we saw in the last Parliament was, of course, COVID-19. We had the pandemic bill passed last year. You, of course, supported it, as did a number of other crossbenchers, which helped to get through. And we actually have already spoken to Samantha Ratnam and Andy Medic about this. It's been pretty much almost a year since there, and regardless of whether you support it or not, it was clear to see there was a lot of anger about it from people in Victoria. Looking at it almost the year since it passed, do you still stand by your decision to back it? Do you still, think that was the right move?
Oh, look, there's no doubt about it. That we have got a set of the most transparent pandemic laws in the country. No other state or territory is operating that way. They're all operating under state of emergency. And I think one of the things that people have missed is that if we hadn't done that, the government would have done whatever that was necessary to reintroduce a state of emergency. And we say that wasn't worth it because it didn't have the transparency that we put in place. No, it was the right thing to do.
Do you acknowledge, though, and this is something I did ask Andy Medic about, that with this anger that has come from some people right across the state, including, I would presume, in Eastern Metro, do you acknowledge this could be an issue that costs you your seat?
Look, it was very vocal, but it's not as big as people think. It could affect our whether we get back in again. But people have to ask themselves: it was a very difficult time, and decisions were made, and the decisions we're going to have to say to ourselves is that you can't just not pretend it's not happening. What the question should be is that how's this impacted people's lives? Well, there are thousands of people alive today because of that really tough measures that we took. Did we like it? Of course we didn't like it. Did we lose bark over it? Absolutely we did. And it may come back to damage us at this state election, but you have to do the right thing.
The other thing, of course, is that while we are going to see a lot of interesting results in the upper house, I'm sure, the lower house is where government is formed. I'd be interested in your prediction on what we're going to see happen. Could we see 4 more years of Andrews, coalition, minority government? What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I think, reading of the tea leaves, we think the Andrews government's going to get back in. Matty Guy's got a mountain to climb. We think he's got probably 5 or 6 seats that are in play, which he may or may not lose. And then he has to pick up another 19 seats if he holds all those ones, right? That is a massive task. It's not impossible, but it's hard to see where those seats are going to come from.
And just finally, of course, regardless of whether you're in or not, as I mentioned at the start, it's been an extraordinary 4 years in Victoria's Parliament, just in the upper house alone. And as you mentioned, you've had to work with a lot of diverse voices from a lot of minor parties there, and of course the majors as well. Has there been any moment that stood out to you throughout that 4 years, other than maybe the homelessness inquiry that you pushed for? Anything? Because when you watch upper house politics, it has just been an extraordinary scene. The fact is, like, there's more crossbenchers than the opposition there, which has, of course, has provided some very interesting debates. So yeah, I'm just interested in your thoughts of what you've made of the past 4 years.
Yeah, I must say, when we're being a bit cheeky towards the opposition, what makes you think they're the opposition? When we caucus as a crossbench, we've got more numbers than them. So, but look, we can, and you'll be surprised how many times we do work together. And we obviously get together and we have a discussion. We have weekly meetings together. So we're about trying to get things done. We don't want to just be there and throw rocks and say no to everything. We want to be able to participate and make sure we get the best results. And in my case, I want to make sure that we get the best results for the most vulnerable and disadvantaged workers in this state.
It has been a fascinating 4 years, and it'll be interesting to see how you go and how these results go come November. But we'll leave it there. Rod Barton, thanks very much for your time. Best of luck.
Thanks very much, Leo.
Rod Barton there, and again, that interview was conducted with 6 News before that Drury video was leaked. Meanwhile, a Liberal candidate running in Dan Andrews' seat and the Freedom Party of Victoria have called for the election to be postponed over those group voting ticket revelations. This is the post from Michael Piastrino, Liberal candidate for Mulgrave, where he made claims of corruption and said he'd hold a press conference with the Freedom Party. 6 News sent images of him at that Freedom event, but Piastrino claims he was just there to get lunch and not for the event. And the post was also soon deleted. Mulgrave is a traditionally safe Labor seat, but Andrews is facing a challenge from 13 other candidates, meanwhile looking like it's Ian Cook, I should say, an independent. 6 News spoke to Michael Piastrino a little earlier.
Look, I think Dan's in a lot of trouble. I mean, we've got at least 15 volunteers daily helping us out on the Liberal campaign, and Dan only has 2 people. And I think the difference with us is we've got a reason to get Daniel Andrews out. He's locked the state down. He's abused his powers, and we will not stop at any cost. So I'm very lucky to have a lot of volunteers helping as well, and I think we've got a very, very, very good chance of knocking the Premier off his seat.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, it is a huge race, and look, the majority of candidates are independents, or at least quite a lot of them are. I think a lot of people outside of Mulgrave, and I am outside of Mulgrave, have said that it looks like the main challenger here is not yourself as a Liberal, but it's the main independent, Ian Cook. What do you think you're going to, or what do you think you're able to bring that someone like Ian Cook, who again many think is the main challenger, wouldn't be able to bring? Because again, there's a chance both of you could get him out, but one of you will be the one who gets up on the 2-party preferred. That's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ian's a great guy. He's become a great mate of mine as well now. He has a very, very touching story what's happened to his business. But at the same time, we are working together in a way to get Daniel Andrews out by, campaigning and getting the message across what Daniel Andrews is doing to or has done to Victoria. I mean, look, if Ian gets in, I'll be happy. If I get in, Ian will be happy for me. I've got a strong brand behind me, the Liberal brand. I mean, I've already promised Mulgrave Primary School on the first term I will deliver $6 million to the primary school, which Daniel Andrews has neglected. So that is the difference. We can do a lot of promises in first term when it comes to financially helping schools and the public.
Now the Liberals look, and I guess the coalition in general, it's a really tough position for you guys. I mean, you need to win something like 14 seats to get a majority government, and you look at some of the seats Labor could lose, but they're not all going to be picked up by a Liberal or a National. How challenging do you think this is for the Liberals in terms of having to actually get up? Because I mean, I can really only see a couple of seats that you guys can pick up easily, and it's going to be a really big challenge in some other areas.
Look, I think it's going to be a challenge. I think every election's a challenge, but we've got to put our faith in God and pray for a beautiful outcome. That's the truth of it.
Gotcha. Now, look, the other thing is, and I saw a lot of people talking about this yesterday, so I want to, clear things up for the record. There were people saying you were at this Freedom Party press conference yesterday. Now, you told me you were getting lunch. Why then did you post on Facebook earlier that you were actually joining that press conference if you were only getting lunch?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was there was a bit of a mistypo. There was definitely no speaking on my behalf at that campaign, which I was doing yesterday. I basically went over, grabbed some of my team. We grabbed some lunch a couple of doors down. And I did say hello to the guys from the Freedom Party, Aidan and Morgan. They've got their objectives. I think they're great guys. And I said, yeah, what's going on? And then it was a bit interesting. We had the Animal Justice Party who had people dressed as koalas. So there was hundreds of people there watching. And I mean, some people, some lowlives want to take photos and say I was doing this and that. I think they just needed to get a job and just get a life, to be honest.
The other thing was, though, in that Facebook post, and you said it's a typo, miscommunication, sure. But it said, and again, I'm quoting because it said you and the Freedom Party generally want the election postponed. Why is that?
Look, I believe there is a lot of corruption going on, as we've seen in the news and so forth. So I think, like anything, there has to be something put in place where we can investigate what seats are being bought. And I think that's very important because this election means so much. And, there's a lot of things, the Freedom Party, that I believe in with them. Absolutely. There's a lot of things that I agree with what they say. But at the same time, sorry, my phone just cut out. My apologies.
All good.
So, yeah, look, I believe in what a lot of things they say. I was very excited at the start to say, yeah, you know what, this might work, this might not work. But at no time I was over there at all on their camera talking about, no.
In terms of seats that have been bought, in your own words, I mean, you look at Glen Druery, and this isn't new. Glen Drury's been doing this since about 1999 in New South Wales. But
yeah,
these are seats in the upper house. The upper house is not where government's formed. We know about this. We know he's been the preference whisperer for years. He can't control who ultimately gets in government, which is as important as the upper house is. It's not where we're going to see Dan Andrews potentially kicked out. So I don't no seats can be bought here.
Look, I don't want to comment on that. I can't comment at this time about that. I can't comment.
Right. There we go. That was Michael Piastrino, Liberal for Mulgrave. Well, throughout the next 7 days, 6 News will continue to have special programs, live rolling coverage, and exclusive stories on the Victorian state election. On Monday night, a special program covering every single party running, those who are endorsing independence and those who've pulled out for whatever reason. We'll continue to have rolling coverage on mornings, evenings, late and on the hour, covering those campaign announcements, speaking to the candidates that matter, and looking at the races that could decide who forms government in the end. And on Saturday night from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, we will be live with those election results as polls close and the results come in. We'll have a panel for you. Stuart Jeffrey, 6 News contributor and host of Between Parks Place and Capitol Hill, and political commentator Matthew Hayne, also the host of the Matthew Hayne Show, plus reports from our team. It's not boring, it's not biased. You don't want to miss it. That's from 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday night. That is 6 News for this hour. There is more news 24/7 on our website, SIXNewsAU.com, and on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. We'll see you company. Good night.